Hello everybody, this is Chris here on HaloFollower, and we are back with another episode of the Halo Club. I think we're on episode 55 or 56. So, you already know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to be talking about, yes, the Flood. The Flood is returning to Halo. This is amazing news. This is great. This changes almost everything. In little ways or big ways. It is such a milestone in the Halo series, especially since 343 Industries took over. This is one of those big flags we plant in the ground for Halo, but also in the Halo community, that I think this wouldn't have happened without us. Without us in the comment sections, without us Halo YouTubers, no matter how small or how big you are. If you made a video about the Flood in the past 7 years or made a comment about the Flood, you were probably partly responsible for, hell, all of us collectively, we were responsible for bringing back the Flood. And I don't think this is something that 343 Industries was thinking about when they were creating Halo 4, when they first took over the Halo story. I think that Bungie, to the much larger extent, I think, and of course this is all speculation, jumping right into it with theories and speculation, that this was not something that they had planned to bring back the Flood. I think they really put it on the back burner and they didn't plan to take it out, although I do think that they left room for the Flood to return if they wanted to. I do think that would be the case. So we're already kicking it off with a lot of theories, a lot of speculation about the past and stuff. So just, real quick, I want to start this video off with like cheers. If we all had beer, fucking cheers, because this is a huge moment in the Halo series, the return of the Flood. We've already seen the return of the Covenant in some forms, in some ways. I recently talked about this. The Banished is sort of the returning of the Covenant, but we all know that the Banished are simply a splinter group that rebelled against the Covenant. The Covenant, real quick, if you don't know, fought the Flood and the humanity, right? And also the Banished. They were fighting on three fronts, technically. For the most part, they were fighting humanity, but also the Banished. They couldn't get the Banished. They defeated many other groups that splintered away, such as Atriox, but they couldn't get them. So the Banished in its own right is not the Covenant, and I'm not saying they are a recreation of the Covenant, but I'm saying in a more practical way they are. They are, for all that gameplay cares anyway, they are the Covenant. They are functioning as the alien species that we have already played against. The Hunters, the Brutes, the Elites, the Grunts. They are, if we were blind to their past, they are the Covenant. So we already know that the Covenant's made a return, and now we're talking about the Flood. So yes, sorry that took so long, but this is a huge moment, so fucking congrats. We did it. We did it, boys. We somehow got to 343 to bring the Flood back. Maybe they already planned to bring the Flood back anyway, but at least we tried, and hopefully we did have an impact, and hopefully all these videos actually change something. So yes, we actually have quite a few comments today from you guys. Not all of these, in fact, I think only 2 of them actually had the hashtag Halo Club, but I always strongly suggest that, because if you specifically want to get into the Halo Club, then please hashtag Halo Club, just how it sounds, all in one thing. So when I'm going to the comments and I search, I can see, okay, this guy wants to be in the Halo Club, or this gal. So we have our first comment here. This is ShoreLord117. He says, they're acting like you weren't able to play as the Flood in Halo 4. Yes, so this is something I recently discussed, but the Flood was already technically playable. Now, they were asked, I think Brian something, I forgot his last name, and plus I don't really know how to say it right, I think he's a community manager at 343. I may be wrong about that. One of the community guys. He said that you were never able to play as a Flood, or rather that was implied, but he says, the Major Nelson asked, will you ever be able to play as a Flood in Halo? Actually, you were. In Halo 4, the Flood mode had it where you were to play as the Flood. Now, I don't want to get into this entirely, but I did talk about it recently in one of our newer videos, that are the Flood going to come to multiplayer, the firefight modes, in a FPS Halo game? And seeing that the Flood has already been in a Halo game to some extent, Halo 4 in war games, we could have at one point already played as the Flood. Now, it didn't really feel like the Flood because there wasn't the spores and the big boom guys. I don't know all my terminology for the Flood, surprisingly, but yes, it would be nice to play as these iconic Flood forms that we already are familiar with, not some very different and bizarre looking Spartan form. But as far as being able to play as the Flood in Halo Wars 2, that is a no-go, unfortunately, at least right now. Raging Sword Elite, wow, I did not actually read his username before I picked this comment, but this guy's been in like 3 or 4 of our Halo clubs in the past few months, so nice to see you again, my friend. He says, finally, the Flood returns. I think I can already piece this all together right now. Right here and right now. Alright, let's see what you got. Once again, the Flood is unleashed. I give 3 for 3 props. As I said once before, I called it. The Flood somehow survived. But one question remains. Why isn't the Flood gonna be a playable faction? Because if I'm correct, the Gravemind shares one mind with the entire Flood force. It would make a lot of sense to play as a Gravemind and control a Flood army. I could see it. The Stalkers would have awesome gameplay abilities as they can turn into live turrets or tank forms. And as for home base, we could upgrade it at the middle to have a proto Gravemind like the one Captain Keyes was put into, so that they could gather much info in order to unlock higher level upgrades. Perhaps, I think, or personally he says, I think that is the next thing that 3 for 3 needs to work on. Thank you, Raging Sword Elite. A lot of great ideas there. So, one of the first things I just thought of while reading that was that when there's new ideas for Halo that come out, there is usually a lot of like creating anything. There's always that, like, you come out with ideas, but you haven't actually climbed into them much. There's only one layer. Ideas, when you first come up with an idea, it's usually shallow. So the first that we will see of the Flood returning to Halo will probably be shallow. But since 3 for 3 in some ways, maybe less than other ways, have been getting deeper into Halo, allowing us to do more things, I expect AI in Forge, I expect everything that we saw in Halo 5's Forge, and AI, since that's a huge thing, since we wanted that back in Halo Reach, and also what he was saying, what Raging Sword Elite was saying, he or she. And it would be great to see the Flood playable in Halo Wars 3, assuming that's gonna be a thing, which I think that's safe to say that Halo Wars 3 is a safe bet. Moving on to Maniac, I don't know how to say that, sorry. Perfect, satisfying timing for the Flood. Hashtag Halo Club. Thanks for the hashtag Halo Club there. Yes, for sure, Maniac. I'll just call you Maniac. Sorry, Maniac. The thing is that this is a pretty good time for the Flood. I do say so. I really did think that the Flood would have been in Halo 4, but I really do think that they wanted to focus more on the Prometheans. And I'm starting to feel like I'm under the impression that 3 for 3 Industries is kind of moving away or softening their advance on the Prometheans. I may be wrong about that, especially with like Ward and Eternal. I actually may be completely misguided on that statement, but I really do like the idea of not only Prometheans being playable in Halo Wars 2 as well, but I really do like the idea of Prometheans kind of taking a step back in Halo 6 and really being about the Flood and about the characters and really about the Foreigners, kind of wrapping up the Halo series up to this point. I've said this many times. I made a 30-minute video about why Halo 6 may be the best Halo game ever, because in a lot of ways, Halo 3 wasn't the end. It wasn't the end of that Halo 1, 2, 3 trilogy. Of course it was, in a more conventional state. But I really do think that Halo 6 can potentially be the end of the Halo series in a lot of respects. Halo 3 really closed the book on a lot of things. Halo 5 and Halo 4 have opened that same book in some ways, open again. There's so much to end and so much closure that needs to be done in Halo 6 if this is truly, I know it's a saga, okay. If this is truly going to be a trilogy in its own respect, even though, again, technically it's not. I do believe that Halo 4, 5, and 6 will act as a trilogy. I think that's how they have planned it. I could be wrong, but if this is going to be the end, then there's a lot that they have to open and close, and mainly close. A lot about the Librarian, Chief's powers, the Ur-Didact, which we're going to talk about later. It's actually our biggest video on HaloFollower, Master Chief's darkest secret. Master Chief was questioned by Guilty Spark in Halo Combat Evolved, asking him why he would be, basically, this isn't quote, I wish I had the quote in front of me, but he is referring to Chief as if he is the Ur-Didact, as if he had already fired the Halo ring many thousands of years ago. Chief is a human. He hasn't been alive for that long. It may have something to do with the fact that Chief, and I can't explain it right now, it's been so long, but if you do want to see it, look up Master Chief's darkest secret. And basically the video is that Master Chief is, in some respect, the reincarnation, I think this is the right terminology for it, the reincarnation of Ur-Didact. You know, I think the best way to put it is that the Ur-Didact is sort of like the Ur-Didact in a lot of ways. Maybe the yin-yang. I may be wrong about that too, so don't take that too seriously. But it's very cool to think, basically the point I'm getting across here is that it's very cool to think that Master Chief has a lot to do with the story in Halo 6 if the story is going in the direction that we think it is. And I promise, guys, I'm going to wrap this all up because I've opened up a lot of points. The point being here is that yes, it is perfect timing for the Flood, because Cortana has taken over the galaxy. Okay, it looks like that anyway. She has shut down many colonies. A lot of the AI have turned against the colonies, against humanity, for basically they can live forever. The Fountain of Youth is Cortana and the Domain. Cortana has saved the AIs and their consciousness. They have revolted. They're not going to give that up. Most of them not. No. And now Cortana is in control of all foreigner tech. How could 343 Industries balance the scale? Because Cortana isn't going to fire that Halo ring unless Chief is safe, and she's probably not going to fire it anyway. She could want to anyway. I don't think it's going to actually happen. But Halo 6 has so many different things that could lead to the conclusion of Agent Locke, Master Chief. What will Master Chief's ending be? Because 343 Industries has already confirmed that his ending is already planned. They already know ultimately what's going to happen to him. They may not know what's going to happen in between now and then, but maybe Halo 7, maybe even Halo 6, Master Chief, whether he dies or retires or disappears or has a false death like Cortana, a red herring death. It makes us think Halo 6 might be the big conclusion, the big fireworks. The Flood may tear down Cortana, and maybe Cortana is trying to tear down humanity. This may be the ultimate reset button for all of Halo. And also, the conclusion of the Flood, ultimately. The conclusion of the precursors, the Forerunners, the Flood. Everything that we've seen up to this point, Halo Combat Evolved, all the way to Halo 5 Guardians. Even in the sub-anthology games such as Halo 3 ODST, this may be the ultimate explosion of events and climaxes. At least I think that is what's possible. 343 may take it a different direction, but I do believe that this has the most potential of any Halo game. Moving on to Caleb McDowell. So he says, seriously, for 343, you bring the Flood back, and what do? Oh yeah, some DLC for a non-mainstream Halo game. And now, the people that don't like RTS games will be confused when they play Halo 6 because they didn't buy the Halo Wars DLC. Good job, 343, good job. A good story arc isn't shrouded by the veil of confusion. Again, this really brings us back to home of the points I was trying to talk about earlier in this video, is that Halo 5 was an absolute miss as far as story events go. I do think that Halo 5 had a lot of cool things in it, but the story was very unorganized, beyond confusing for new fans, I'm sure. And so I do think this is, again, building upon the theory that I think that Halo 4, 5, and 6 will act as a conclusion for everything, is that Halo 5 was so scattered, Halo 4 set up a lot of things that were left unanswered, if you will. And so it brings us to the conclusion that maybe Halo 5 was messy because it was just a mid-act, simply Act 2 of a much larger story, and maybe a lot of the clumsiness that Halo 5 was a setting up to Halo 6, and that's a super optimistic point of view. If you think that 343 is really shitty at acting or creating their actors and their characters and the story, and if you think they're bad at making stories, basically, then you're not gonna get on board with this theory. But maybe Halo 5 was simply a setup for Halo 6. At least we can hope, right? Maybe there was a reason why the story was so confusing. Now, Caleb here brought up a really good point. Not the actual content of his point, but the fact that a lot of people are kind of confused that why would you bring the Flood back in a mainstream Halo game? Personally, I think they're testing the waters. I think they're kind of unsure if they want the Flood back. Halo Wars 2 has always been sort of like testing the waters thing anyway. I mean, Halo Wars, the series, missing around that RTS formula. Fun fact, Halo was originally supposed to be an RTS Halo game. This is as Halo as you get, at least if you want to be technical about it. Now, he also says it's some DLC for non-mainstream Halo game. Again, same thing. People are under the impression that Halo and Halo Wars 2 isn't connected to the mainstream Halo games. This is the return of the Flood. All right, this is the return of the Flood to the main series of Halo games. Think about how closely knit Halo Wars 2 is to the Halo series. Halo Wars was originally supposed to be the very opposite, all right? An isolated group where I believe it was Ensemble and 343, or rather Bungie and Microsoft, 343 wasn't even in the picture at that time, said that they wanted an isolated story. And I believe the words were something like, we didn't want to make a sequel if we didn't have to. It was something like we didn't want to interact with the main Halo storyline like Halo 2 or 3. We wanted an isolated story. And so this is them tying the characters Captain Cutter, Professor Anders, and the Banished, and also the Flood, and hyping it up to Halo 6. That is my theory. I think the Banished may have a part in Halo 6, at least the events that unfold into it. In fact, before Halo Wars 2 released, we heard in an article that Halo Wars 2 will have a big impact on Halo 6. I'm not quite sure how it was worded, but it was something within those lines, that Halo 6 will have been impacted by Halo Wars 2 events. Now, if you haven't already seen all the Halo Wars 2 scenes, I would really recommend you to jump away from this video and go check that out elsewhere. However, I do think that Halo Wars 2, on its ending, I think that really did make a big implication that, yes, Halo Wars 2 will tie in with the story, as they said, with the Anders walking up and seeing the Guardian. Of course, her being delivered on that ring suggests that Cortana will find the Spirit of Fire, perhaps have something to do with Isabel. I think that also brings up the possibility of Master Chief and Captain Cutter and Isabel interacting, hopefully, or at least being exposed to the same events in the universe. Anders is too. So it's nice to see that even Master Chief and Cortana have a direct impact on Halo Wars' 2 story, vice versa. So anyway, let's move on. Ian Height says, so Chris, I've been thinking of a Halo game that 343 could make before they release Halo 6. So here is my idea of the game. Let me rephrase that. So he says, is my idea, the game wouldn't take place as you playing a Spartan or a Marine, but as a prophet or something like that. So this would take place during the start of a Sanshium civil war, and the reformists leave Jan Jur Quam, I'm really off today, to create the Covenant, and it would get to where they are assimilating the former species of the Covenant into the Covenant. I hope that made sense. And that you could see and play in the battles of many Covenant species, like, for example, taming the Lagolo and the war between the Sanshium and the Sinkili. I hope this made sense, and I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, the first part didn't make sense, or maybe I'm just fuzzy today, fuzzy in the mind. I think that what basically he's saying here is that a game about the Civil War, a game that dives into the Covenant species, you know? And so it really does make me question what 343 or even Bungie, I could go as far as to say even Bungie, have been doing with the games. Why haven't they taken that third or fourth jump into the Covenant? We haven't actually been able to play as the Covenant. We've been able to play as the Arbiter or as elites in multiplayer, but even that has been severely lacking in the past decade, really, is that there hasn't been much of that. There hasn't been much diving into the Covenant in first person. You know, there's been a lot of information revealed about these characters, but how cool would it be to see a side Halo game where we jump into, that's focused on the Covenant, that gets into the eeriness of this alien culture and civilization that collapsed. How cool would it be to take to see a different perspective in Halo 3 or Halo 3 between Halo 4, a game about the Arbiter taking back Sinkilios, or perhaps the life of the Covenant species elsewhere and their struggles, perhaps giving us a new view and perhaps giving us empathy to. A lot of people saw the Halo lore video that I did a long time ago, the heartbreaking history of the Covenants. It has almost 2 million views. This video really changed a lot of people's minds because most of the Covenant, like the Grunts, were forced into the Covenant. They didn't have a choice. They had to face destruction by the Covenant or join them. So in a lot of ways, the aliens that we kill in Halo were not wanting to be there. And so, and it really is, it's funny because the Grunts are probably, that's probably the most true for the Grunts. The Grunts, you can even see many times in the gameplay, they drop their weapons and they run away as soon as someone bigger shows up or one of their leaders die. And so it would be really cool to learn more about the Covenant, to take that step into their culture. We've already had plenty of games about Spartans dying, Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach, about these other characters dying, and it seems like we've invested so much time, as the Halo developers have done, in dwelling in the humanity portion, when I think that why that is very valuable, there is so much more to Halo. And this really brings us back to the flood topic of this video, is that it would be really crazy. Now this one, maybe not right away. I think they got to catch up on the Covenant first, but it would be really cool to see an insider's look on the Flood. Maybe that could actually be done with the Foreigners and the Foreigner Flood War, but it would be really cool to see a different perspective in Halo for the first time in a long time, I do think. And I'm not talking about Agent Locke different perspective. I'm talking about a different culture, civilization, body kind of race and species, basically. Death Shadow says, HaloFollower, this comment is mainly for you. Since the flood had been released again, this time with seemingly extra hatred, do you think it'll be possible for us to see more of that lovely mendicant bias? Didn't the Ur-Didact put him in stasis on the Ark? What if we end up having to get MB, mendicant bias, to help fight the flood? What if the flood make it back home? What about Installation 07? There's still flood infestation there. The Sword of Sanchelios have been holding them off. Troubling. What do you think? I think that Bungie and 343, as I said in the beginning of this video, have planted seeds for the flood to come back if they wanted. This may have been plot ideas on paper a long time ago, but now they're diving into it. And it's really interesting to see it all unfold and how it happens and whatnot. We saw a flood spore on the Spirit of Fire in a comic a long time ago. I don't think that it's the same flood spore that's infected the Ark. I think that maybe the flood was kept far away within the Ark, perhaps trapped in the Ark. But it looks like from the trailer, Atriox says, I told you to not go in there. Perhaps Atriox is knowing of how terrible the flood is. I mean, of course he is, because he was alive and he ran the Banished during the time that the flood had the outbreak, and you know, Halo 1, 2, and 3 and whatnot, when it started coming out again. So I think that you asked a lot of questions here, Death Shadow. You have a lot of stuff on your mind here. So the Ur-Didact, didn't Mendicant Bias put the Ur-Didact in stasis? I believe he did, although I'm a little bit rusty on my pre-Halo lore, the old ancient lore, but I believe so. I believe he was present during the tombing of Mendicant Bias on the Ark. Mendicant Bias was trying to speak to John through the Ark terminals, which you can see if you see any of the terminals in Halo 3. Now, he actually did have a lot to do with the story. He even has his voice coming out if you play Halo 2, the soundtrack, Mumbasum, or whatever. I'm fuzzy on the words right now. If you play one of the songs backwards, you can hear him singing a poem or saying a poem. So he has already been present as far back into Halo 2. He was fighting Cortana, and there's theories that he actually manipulated the Ark explosion at the end of Halo 3, the portal, to separate Chief from everybody, from the Arbiter, and send him willingly, like send him to Requiem that was directed by Mendicant Bias. Potentially, this isn't fact. Now, it would be so cool to see Mendicant Bias finally be revealed, hyped up since Halo 2, bringing us back to that main point I was talking about, is that Halo 6 might be the big climax of the Halo series. So, Ur-Didact, I think that this all has to do with a big conclusion, and hopefully 343 can execute it well. It's a lot to get out, but what if the flood make it back home? Of course. I mean, if the flood is unleashed, if they opened a door and the flood are roaming around the Ark, I think that the chances of the flood being contained at that point are so slim. The Foreigners had, like, think about how much effort went into destroying the flood. The ancient humanity, the ancient Foreigners, and all these species and all these races had to annihilate the galaxy to get rid of the flood, right? So the fact that the flood are back brings up some very big issues. I don't think the Banished, because the Foreigners and other races couldn't, I don't think the Banished are going to be able to contain the flood. And I don't think that, as 343 writers and storytellers, want that to happen anyway. This is going to be something that unfolds that really brings Cortana a lot of issues. Golden Darkness 070 says, just hear it roar, sound of an engineer. So yeah, I made a mistake recently on one of my videos. I said, listen to the Abomination unit roar, and it was the sound of an engineer. These things happen. I'm learning too. As some people are under the impression that I know everything about Halo, I don't. Or maybe you guys know this very well. Dark Lord Iwa says, to be honest, Firefight really does seem like a flood kind of thing, as in, it suits it more than the Covenant in my opinion, and I don't think remove the Covenant, just make it a part of it. Yes, for sure, Dark Lord Iwa. I completely agree. The Flood seems it's a survival. That's what Firefight is. It's a survival fight until you die kind of thing, and that's something that is very infamous among zombie games. And Halo Zombie is the Flood, is it not? Luke Skywalker II says, do you guys think that the Flood will escape the Ark in the Awakening expansion for Halo Wars 2? And if so, then do you think it will be possible that we could see the Flood in Halo 6? Luke Skywalker II, excellent question, and of course we just talked about this. Yes, I believe that the Flood is making a major return to the Halo series. Joe Expliver says, Chris, do you think there is still hope for Halo 3 Anniversary? While they may have not shown it at 343, there is still one more event coming up at PAX East in August, I believe. If you remember in the past, Halo Wars 2 was revealed actually at PAX East and not E3, and 343 will do the same thing for Halo 3 Anniversary. What do you think? Also, keep up the great videos. Thank you, Joe Expliver. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Apologies if I'm not. I think that Halo 3 Anniversary, the likelihood of this game being completed this year is almost zero. Now, if the game has enough support, if enough people make videos about it, if there's enough forum activity, and 343 Industries sees that this is a profitable thing, because Frank O'Connor already has admitted it doesn't seem like a profitable thing, then I don't think it'll ever be made. I think that if there is enough push, then they might be made next year, or among some kind of Master Chief Collection PC port, if there is even enough desire for that. But no, Halo 3, from what I remember, is the most highest selling Halo game of all time. I think it sold like 12 million copies and a half. So it sold a lot. It sold more than Halo 5, it sold more than Halo Wars, it sold more than everything, right? Halo 3 is really the golden goose in the Halo series. So a lot of us have been wondering why don't we make a Halo 3 Anniversary game then, 343? Well, I think that there's also some reasoning for the profit margin, is that they thought that the collection was going to be like a big hitter. It didn't sell as much as they wanted it to. So I think that Halo 3 Anniversary, Joe, probably won't release this year. It may be next year, but this year it looks pretty down. As far as the reveal goes, then I think there's a 50-50 chance in August, because they could make a game right now. They could decide to make a game right now, and they could mock something up, I think, with for PAX East. Maybe I might be wrong about that, because of course they gotta schedule stuff and set things up. But anyway, that's just my thoughts about that. Hopefully that was satisfying, Joe. So Vinny is our last comment. He says, oh my god, what is that huge flood form? Yeah, well, it doesn't make the engineer sound. So it doesn't. That is the ambassador form. It's classified as a hive commander, whatever that means. But this unit is definitely powerful. The tall, two-armed unit that we saw in the Halo Wars 2 gameplay so far, it looks a lot like the juggler concept art that we saw in Halo 2 concept art. It was a unit, I think, we made a video on it a long time ago, weird facts and trivia about the Flood, I believe, but it wasn't actually put in the game, as you could remember if you played Halo 2, but it looks like that 343 Industries, as we learn more, especially about Bungie's past, because there's a huge timeline video that came out recently. As we learn more about Halo's past, we are starting to discover that a lot of what 343 is making is actually original Bungie ideas. The Bungie already had the idea of space battles and boat battles and Prometheans and Requiem and the railgun, for example. Those are some things I know, and the Juggernaut unit looking thing that's called the Abomination, which is a very fitting name for it. So it's really cool to see that a lot of these ideas that 343 are making isn't really even their ideas, it's Bungie's concept for the future of the series. So with that being said, we have talked about a lot, but video's not over. Real quick, guys, thank you so much for watching. I want to give a quick shout out to our channels, our sister and brother channel, or sisters or brothers, whatever. I mean, it's our sub channels or whatever, side channels. There's BioWare Follower, which covers Anthem. It looks like a really freaking cool game. It reminds me of what Destiny should have been in a lot of ways, and also what Halo could be if they decide to go with a third-person MMO RPG kind of style of Halo game, which I believe, at least MMO, there was a cut MMO Halo game in the past. So Anthem looks like a really incredible game. I would definitely suggest to you, if you're into sci-fi, especially like games like Destiny and Halo, to go check out BioWare Follower, because there's tons of news about Anthem over there, which of course Tucker, he's been here on HaloFollower a few times, hasn't been in a while, but there's just so much to look forward to over there. So please go check out BioWare Follower, and also PlayStation Follower. Christian over there is just doing an amazing job. He's just posting content every day, really great content, couple trailers, very convenient trailers coming up, as well as really good recaps that you can't find anywhere else. So go check that out over on PlayStation Follower as well. And of course, if you're still watching, big thank you from me personally. I really do appreciate y'all's time, and more so, I appreciate your comments. The people that commented here, thank you. You may have already posted many comments here on HaloFollower, or none at all. I suggest you to post one if you haven't already. It's always wonderful to see viewers, people watching these videos for such a long time, just to post something. So yes, let me know you're here. Post something. Let me know your thoughts about Flood returning to Halo. All right, this is a huge milestone. It's a huge victory, as I was saying in the beginning of this video. I may be wrong. I think we made this happen, guys. All right, I would love an official confirmation from 343. And by the way, 343, if you're watching, thank you for bringing back the Flood. Thank you for listening to us. It's not that hard to find out what we want. We're here, we're open. Read the comments. Read these comments on the video as well. Listen to what Halo YouTube is saying, because we are present. We are up to date with what the community wants. I think for the most part, I may be wrong. Post your comments of what you think about that. And yeah, fill us in. Fill the gaps in, 343. I'm looking forward to Halo 6. I think we all are. Okay, so anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Sub if you haven't already. What are you doing, by the way, if you haven't subbed? You're crazy if you haven't subbed. And of course, like this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.